This last Wednesday, January 7th, a woman by the name of Renee Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent named Jonathan Ross. Immediately, video came out about it, and then more video came out about it. Immediately, people took sides. Many of those people were at the highest levels of American government, namely the President of the United States and the Vice President, immediately casting their opinions on who was at fault and who wasn't at fault.
She was so loud and so crazy and just not normal.
This was an attack on federal law enforcement. This was an attack on law and order. This was an attack on the American people, using domestic terror techniques.
And she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over.
You look at what the definition of domestic terrorism is, it completely fits the situation on the ground.
I am actually talking to you from a parking lot in a vehicle that is a little bit bigger than Renee's vehicle. She had a Honda, but this is a Ford Explorer. I have watched all the videos so many times because the 5 different videos that have been put out of this interaction between Renee and Agent Ross, each one shows you a little bit more, and each one reveals a little bit more about who might be at fault, why there might have been tension. I obviously have my opinions, but I feel like if I can walk around this vehicle using some techniques that I'm able to triangulate from the videos and the clips, you might be able to have a better understanding of the interaction as well. I'll also have a chance to talk about the idea that you're going to call this person a terrorist, justification for using deadly force. And I'll talk about how these sorts of measures and this sort of attitude in America, particularly right now, is so vastly different from the opinions and the ideas of the people that exist in countries outside of the United States. The conversation of the right to kill somebody is a conversation that is pretty unique to the United States of America in this sort of way. Renee was driving an SUV not unlike the one behind me. Mine is a little bit bigger. The front end is a little bit wider than her Passport. It has a front emblem in the center of the hood, and it's got the 2 headlights here, and you'll see why that's important later. Renee came to the scene, dropped off her partner on the side of the road, and then turned her car on a slight angle, blocking one of 2 lanes on a residential street, knowing that ICE was coming down the road from this direction. She sort of sits there for a couple of minutes. She's honking her horn, and she's doing a little bit of a dance. Not the signs of a terrorist. Maybe the signs of somebody who's a little bit excited, maybe too excited to be a protester or an agitator. She's honking her horn, she's having a good time, but another thing that she's doing is she's looking out the window and she's waving cars past her. It doesn't seem to be that she's intending to block the street 100%. It's obvious for the fact that she's letting people pass by her. She's just trying to be an obstruction, a slightly porous obstruction, mind you. So at a certain point, ICE gets frustrated, and as she's parked on a diagonal, a car pulls around her from the back, that's Agent Ross, and parks on the side of the car on the opposite side. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna walk around the vehicle just like Agent Ross did on that day. He was recording with his phone, and his phone, you can see by the footage, was held out in front of him about 1.5 to 2 feet away from his body. And that's important because when you look at the perspective that he shares, you're looking at the perspective of the camera down below 2 feet out. You're not looking through his eyes. So Agent Ross came on the scene. He had his camera out, and the first thing that he saw was a cute dog in the window kind of staring at him. What happened then is he approached the front of the vehicle, and you could almost see both headlights. Now, like I said, my Explorer is a little bit wider. Comes into the scene, and then right away you see Renee's smiling face. Whether it's snarky or not, that's not what I'm trying to debate. But she was pleasant in what she said.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
I'm not mad at the man who's about to kill me. The irony there is very, very sad. Then at that point, you see the officer, you see the camera in his hand, you can kind of see how far he's holding it from himself, and he walks around the back to get the license plate. As he walks around the back, he comes in close. You can see the back of the vehicle, you can see the rear of the vehicle. He argues with Renee's partner, and then there's an altercation between the two. And then he steps away from the vehicle a little bit, gets some distance. At this point in time, he starts walking in front of the vehicle again, and we see agents approach in a pickup truck, and they're going to try to pressure her into getting out of the vehicle. That's where you have some very critical points in this whole interaction that I don't think a lot of people are paying so much attention to. He's got about 3 steps as he's crossing the front of the vehicle. You can see from different points of view that he was around the left side, the driver's side of the vehicle. In one view that's a couple of properties away, it's like a security view, you can see that his body blocks and then reveals the headlight as the vehicle is moving. That meant that he was all the way almost beyond the vehicle's driver's side in that view. In another view, you see his feet moving, and you can see that his feet, when he fires the first shot, are actually beyond the driver's side of the vehicle. I am saying that if you are beyond the driver's side of the vehicle and there is no worry about great bodily injury, you should not have fired on Renee once, let alone 3 times in the face. As her passport starts to adjust to leave the scene, whether you believe that's okay or not, I'm not arguing that, but as she backs away, you see him take a final step forward into the vehicle, in the front of the vehicle, before the video cuts out in this one clip. This is the only clip that I have seen that really judges the distance of him in front of the car. After that, we got to play on the other clips that can kind of position us where he was on either side of the car. One of the interesting things that one of the clips reveal is what happens with his camera when he's recording the interaction as he walks around the front of the car and as the car moves forward. From a far distance, it's a very, very short clip that his hand touches the hood and his gun is already out at that time, and he leans into the car. Now the car is coming across him and he's sort of losing his balance, but there's a point where he leans in and his hand is fully outstretched and he fires a shot through the windshield, bottom driver's side corner, into Renee Good. At that point in time, this leg here, you can see in a couple of the other shots, steps back, and as the car passes by, this is a real clincher. He fires 2 shots through the open window into Renee Good. Without the car moving, he comes across, he's filming, the car starts to move forward, it closes in on him, he lays his hand here, steps forward, leans into the car, shoots Renee Hill, takes 1 step back, and he's free. 1 foot might have been in front somewhat partially of the taillight, but his arm was here, his other arm was here, and then he walks away. Now, what happens after the shooting is equally chilling, because as what seemingly is Renee's lifeless body propels the vehicle forward unconsciously to impact a vehicle down the road, you hear Agent Ross refer to her as a fucking bitch. He's not concerned about his health. He's not concerned about being injured. He's not really concerned about his fellow agents. He just wants to be angry at the woman that he just murdered. Fucking bitch. And there's some other interesting things here. As soon as he took an action to kill Renee, her controlled vehicle turns into an uncontrolled vehicle. And you can see it by it being propelled down the street. If her steering wheel wasn't lined up straight, she would have driven into a house, into a crowd. She impacted a vehicle, but she could have impacted so much more. Now, you could see from the point where I was kind of reenacting the way that I think he laid out on the hood, which is proven by a lot of the video clips, you can see, one, that he was not in the direct path of this vehicle. He was brushed aside at best, and he was leaning against the hood from off of the hood. 2, he fired 1 clean shot through the windshield bottom driver's side corner. Agent Ross has a history of being a firearms instructor. He apparently had been through 100 different vehicle interactions, and 7 months prior was involved in an accident that dragged him 50 to 100 yards down a road in a previous interaction.
That very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile?
This guy should understand to respect a vehicle that is running, that is not piloted by an agent, and is unpredictable. And he decided to walk around this vehicle 2 times. The second time he walked around it, the vehicle was backing up, turning tires, and ready to go. Instead of taking that half step off to alleviate the opportunity to even potentially have to be brushed aside by a vehicle, he instead unholstered his gun while the vehicle was starting to move forward, and in a full second it takes to step away or to lay on that hood and point that gun at the driver and shoot that person in the face. But he didn't just do that. He shot her in the face, got his footing again, looked through the open window directly at this woman's face and shot her 2 more times, sending her now unmanned vehicle to careen down the road, potentially killing somebody else, injuring somebody else, and luckily it just hit another car. Use of force with a firearm in law enforcement has to satisfy 3 pillars. All three. If one pillar is gone, you shouldn't have used your weapon in that instance. And what that action has to be is reasonable, necessary, and imminent. It wasn't reasonable for him to fire a weapon on a suburban street at a woman that was driving a car with her wheels turned away, and the fact that he could call her a fucking bitch and casually walk over to her car also shows that it wasn't necessary, because whether he shot her or not, he would have still regained his footing and watched her either drive away, to which they can follow her because he recorded her license. There was no worry that she was going to go careening down the street and hurt somebody. She was just trying to leave the altercation, which, again, if you want to agree that that was something that she shouldn't have done, that's okay. It certainly wasn't warranting her death. By the time he fired that first shot, he was already off to the side of the vehicle. So there was no imminent need to fire a firearm. Even giving him all that credit, saying that he was scared, he had been dragged down the street by a vehicle before, and so he probably shouldn't have been in a situation where he was potentially interacting with other vehicles again. Maybe he was a little bit too fearful, but I don't know how fear goes in, because he didn't seem fearful when he said fucking bitch to her as he drove away.
Fucking bitch.
But even if you gave him all the credit in the world for that first shot, accidentally, his hands on the hood, his fingers on the trigger where it shouldn't be unless you're ready to fire, and he accidentally fired through the corner of the car into Renee's face. The idea that he can step back, point that gun into the vehicle, and fire 2 more shots to Renee's face. It boggles my mind, to be honest. I have had a really tough time digesting all of these reports, because there are some people who think that Renee had every right to be killed on that street. There are some that feel some nuance. Well, she was stupid, she was co-opted by the left-wing ideology or whatever. There's people like Donald Trump who thinks, shouldn't have been there. You shouldn't be going against my thugs going around America doing whatever they want to do.
I said, this isn't a normal situation. This is a professional troublemaker. And how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
They were peaceful people. These were great people.
She was so loud and so crazy and just not normal.
And then you've got other people who are on the other side, who say her protests were completely within her right. It was okay for her to block the road. That is probably one of the more debatable points. She was in the middle of the road blocking ICE, They could get around her. She was waving people around, so there really wasn't an obstacle that couldn't be avoided. She was creating herself as an avoidable obstacle and a bit of an annoyance to the agents. I know people on the left and right. I got people that I know that haven't voiced this opinion, but I think believe that the killing was justified. And I've got people completely on the other side in my family who are avid anti-Trumpers and avid progressives. I wouldn't justify them being murdered because they felt so frustrated by the system working the way that it's working now that they would park themselves in a street and block ICE officials. You know, when he said fucking bitch to her as her car careened away, if she was intending to kill him, she would not have turned the wheels away from him. She would have gone through him and then turned the wheel to go down the street. The other argument to use deadly force is to protect yourself or others. And as I said, I don't think he was in any danger of being run over, so he wasn't worried about protecting himself. And in essence, he actually took the protection away from others in the area by firing those 3 shots when there were people standing all around. The shot could have gone through the vehicle and hit somebody on the other side of the vehicle. And as the vehicle careened down the street, now out of control because Renee was at that point either seriously injured or dead, the vehicle became the true weapon that everybody's assuming that she was trying to use in the beginning by quote unquote trying to run over Agent Ross.
She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle.
He, in fact, did more to turn Renee's vehicle into a weapon than Renee ever did. I find it also interesting that Agent Ross felt so justified in releasing his personal video from his phone. In my opinion, that was almost the most damning to him, because not only did it catch Renee Good saying,
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
I'm fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Which, even in jest or being snarky, it's not a hateful thing to say. But you also saw how he was holding his phone. I think that's a big detail, that it was out in front of him. The idea that he was run over, I think, especially from high-end officials in the government, is because they looked at that footage and they saw that phone way out in front of the hood of the car, when in essence it was actually extended out from where he was. Will Agent Ross or anybody that does something similar face justice? I don't think so. I feel like something has been fundamentally broken in America over the course of the last decade. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. People are divided. They've found their camps and they're sticking to it. They don't care about what they thought was the red line today. They'll just move it tomorrow based on who they believe at the time. I don't have all the evidence. I'm making assumptions. I'm a YouTuber. I can do that sort of thing. But the president shouldn't have that luxury to just willy-nilly call something a spade if he thinks it's a spade. Because you might find out that it's a club, or it's a diamond, or there was extenuating circumstances. I believe that the people that are interpreting the video footage that are coming out are coming to some really false justifications for the murder of this woman. And then if you extrapolate this farther, if you use a vehicle to impact another American citizen, that is a terroristic act.
You look at what the definition of domestic terrorism is, it completely fits the situation on the ground.
And a terroristic act that is so vile that it is justification to use deadly force against the driver of that car. It doesn't take more than opening the Twitter X app and seeing the multitude of drivers plowing through protesters, oftentimes driven by ICE agents themselves, that make you think this is a very terrible road to go down. Because if you're going to justify deadly force in this instance, and you're willing to bend the definition of that term terrorist, domestic terrorist, and the rules behind how you act with those sorts of situations, then you're opening Pandora's box to allow the justification for not only government tyranny to start picking off people who annoy you in the street, who honk their horn or dance in their car while they try to impede something that they feel is unlawful as an American citizen. You also put everybody involved in these situations in the crosshairs, whether they're government officials or protesters alike. I mean, I have lived in Asia for 20 years. I've traveled around the world. When I came back to America after living abroad for so long, there is a weight that presses down on you when you get here, and that weight is undeniable. Renee impeded traffic, yes. Renee was being a nuisance to the ICE agents, yes. She was also allowing people to pass by her, so she wasn't being a complete stone wall. An agent with a mask approached her from the driver's side at the point that Agent Ross was walking in front. There was no communication between those two agents because she was ready to move. It was very obvious at a certain point that she was going to try to flee. And at that point in time, the guy with his mask was trying to reach into her vehicle to grab her steering wheel on one side, and Ross was pulling out his gun and placing his phone on her headlight driver's side at the same time, instead of taking a single step to the side. And that half step would have taken him less time than it took that car to approach him and for him to lean against the hood and fire a shot into her face, and then fire two more through her open window. America's sick, man. And I don't know how it's gonna fix, because people here, they're treating this whole situation like they're sports fans, and their side can do no wrong, and anything goes. You just gotta win. It's crazy. It's crazy. What do you think? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm way off base? I'm willing to be criticized. Nobody's infallible. I wish that some people out there would understand that and realize that you're never 100% right, but there's a lot of nuance in between a lot of issues out there. In this case, I believe that although Renee was a bit of a goofball and was using her vehicle to try to block some of the ICE agents, she certainly didn't deserve to die, and certainly didn't deserve the treatment that led to that point. So, I don't know. What do you think?
Fucking bitch.
It made me think about like where you might hear that sort of thing said so casually out of just spiteful anger. We all know like a snobby guy at the office who wears his button up and he's kind of like does his job, and he goes to work every day, and he's kind of like got a stick up his butt. And you can create a scenario in your head where a secretary from another office walks past him and bumps him, and the coffee splashes over his beautiful white button-up lapel. And as she's walking away saying, sorry, he goes,
Fucking bitch.
And that was like sort of the way that I feel he delivered those words. And I also feel like that was sort of the feeling that he had. He was angry at this lady for getting in his way. There was no remorse. And Donald Trump and different people said that he was run over. I cycled through China. I've seen a person get run over. This guy was brushed aside at best.
Just not normal. When somebody sees something like that, they don't go screaming and the same words.